Okay, so there's this conspiracy theory that cancer already has a cure and pharmaceutical companies are hiding it because they make so much money on cancer treatments that they don't want to give that up. According to a survey, a quarter of Americans believe this to be true, and every 1 in 7 believe that it might be true. And you know what? I can absolutely see why so many people believe this one. Don't get me wrong, it's definitely false, and we'll go into detail on why soon, but I want to be thorough. I don't just want to outright debunk it, although we could. There are simpler ways to do what I'm doing right now, but I want to go into detail on almost every aspect on why this conspiracy is so popular, why cancer is a special kind of disease, and why it's not likely that we are getting rid of it anytime soon. It's a complex topic. So complex, in fact, that it offers a lucrative opportunity to dishonest grifters and quacks to exploit vulnerable people who are trying to grasp on any straw that could seem like it would keep them afloat for just a while longer. Because more often than not, ordinary people don't know a lot about the topic. So, this is going to be part science, part debunking, and part rant. If you're into any of that, strap in. And if you're someone who's watching because you believe in this whole thing, I hope you'll stick around till the end. First of all, I think it's necessary to discuss what cancer is in a bit more detail before we go any further, because I don't want to leave any holes in explaining this whole thing, and understanding how the disease itself works can be a crucial part of that. I'll try not to overcomplicate it, just complicating it to an amount I believe is required. The term cancer is an umbrella term. It describes various diseases, and in most cases the only thing some of them have in common is the fact that they are all called cancer. They originate from the host's own cells, divide rapidly, and destroy surrounding healthy tissue, eventually spreading to other organs as well. This is a key thing I'd like to reiterate. Cancer doesn't come from an external source. It's your own cells turning against you for their own relative benefit. This is the reason why it's so hard to target them specifically without harming healthy cells in the process. But of course, as nothing is absolute in science, there's been papers on transmittable cancers in dogs and Tasmanian devils. At this point, we don't know for human cancer like that, whether cancer cells themselves are transmittable, but some infectious diseases do increase your chances of getting certain types of cancer, like the way HPV does with cervical cancer. It does have something in common with infectious diseases though. Their goal is to survive, and they evolve, remember this word, to avoid threats. Bacteria do this by, for example, developing resistance to antibiotics, and cancer does it by learning to evade the immune system, getting a bunch of mutations, changing their environment to best fit their needs, like growing extra blood vessels, simply not dying, and stuff like that. Strengthening your immune system might help against infectious diseases. In some cases, it helps you not develop cancer because you won't catch diseases that would increase your risks. But once you do develop cancer, your immune system isn't going to be of much help on its own. You can also think of cancer this way. Once we evolved into multicellular organisms way back, we needed to find a way to limit the amount of cells we had. Since originally single-celled organisms simply reproduced by dividing, we had to find ways to inhibit this. Cancer removes this barrier. The cells back to their ancient state of multiplying and surviving at any cost. Basically an evolutionary process in micro. Cancer pretty much behaves like its own organism that has to compete with its environment, the host's body in this case. Only thing is that all it knows is how to survive. It doesn't know that it's killing itself in the process along with the host. Sounds like something else, I know. Biologists hypothesize that cancer has been around for as long as multicellular organisms existed. It uses the same mechanisms other living organisms use to adapt. In short, cancer is the price we pay for evolution. The way living things adapt to their environments is coded in our cells. Simple logic would suggest that animals with more cells develop more cancer since they have more cells that could go wild, but that's not the case. For example, elephants simply have a lot more copies of a gene that blocks tumor growth than humans, so a lot more things would have to go wrong in order for elephants to develop cancer. And naked mole rats never ever get cancer. Not even when they're exposed to stuff that generally causes it. Scientists suspect this is due to a protein that makes their skin remarkably elastic that can also stop cancer from forming. Sharks, though, it's an urban myth that sharks don't get cancer, one that they're still hunted for, unfortunately, because their cartilage is seen as a remedy. There have been studies on the effectiveness of shark cartilage, and apparently it made no difference. This will sound kind of bad, but cancer is probably the most unique thing that can happen to a person. No two cancers are the same. It's sort of like a fingerprint that's also trying to kill you. Types of cancers can be similar, which is why we have many very sophisticated treatments for certain kinds. Some mutations are common in one but not in the other, but in the end, it's all unique. This is why even the most special treatments will work on one person and not on another.
One size doesn't fit all. All cancers are different, and no one treatment works for everybody. Even two people with the same diagnosis may need different treatments.
But yeah, it is kind of a modern disease. Even though we have better treatments and diagnosis is often not a death sentence anymore, cancer cases are steadily growing year after year. But that it didn't exist back then is a bullshit claim. Even the name came from Hippocrates originally, circa 400 BC. He referred to cancer as carcinos, the Greek word for crayfish, because the veins stretching across the tumor reminded him of one. A couple hundred years later, a guy named Celsus used the word cancer first, which was just carcinos translated to Latin. If you ever wondered why the zodiac sign and the disease have the same name, then here you go. Both mean crab. An excavated bone of a human ancestor that lived around 1.8 million years ago shows evidence of cancer. A big fat tumor on the bone that researchers were able to prove wasn't a benign growth, but instead a cancerous one. Even better, a study in 2003 described signs of cancer in dinosaur bones, which is just amazing. Sad for the dinos, obviously, but amazing. Also, a bunch of ancient Egyptian mummies have been examined by a variety of methods, and some of them actually had cancer. An article by Rosalind David and Michael Zimmerman summarizes the whole thing pretty well. According to them, even though cancer existed back then, it wasn't as common as it is today. This can be due to a bunch of factors, like most cancers appear later in life and they didn't live that long. And of course, pollution and our daily exposure to common carcinogens aren't negligible either. Anyway, they work at the Centre for Biomedical Egyptology at the University of Manchester. I just learned that something like that exists and I want in. This is probably all I want to say about cancer right now. It's something that's likely been around since forever, but our ways of life, industrialism and all that caused it to become more common over time. It is also very scary. Approximately every third person will develop some type of cancer in their lifetime and has to go through often painful, uncomfortable, and sometimes borderline torturous treatments in order to get better. And many of them do get better. Modern treatments work. With cancer being such a common disease and treatments costing insane amounts of money, especially if your country doesn't have socialized healthcare, it's not hard to see how many will fall for the conspiracy of an already existing cure hidden from the eyes of the public in order to profit off treatments. These people usually believe a variety of things, sometimes even a combination of them, that a nefarious group wants to kill off a section of the population and that's why they are hiding the cure. This group is trying to profit off treatments by hiding the cure. That existing treatments are the ones that kill people and not cancer. That alternative treatments actually work and they are hiding that fact to get sick people to pay for treatments. And who do they usually believe this nefarious group to be? It depends. Less often it's something like reptilians, the Illuminati, the Freemasons, and more often it's just blatant anti-Semitism. Even the ones who'd have all the money and influence in the world to access that alleged secret cure, billionaires, still die from cancer. Sheldon Adelson and Sheldon Solow, both on the Forbes 400 richest people list at the time of their deaths in 2020, died of cancer. David Koch, who poured insane amounts of money into US politics, died of cancer. Lily Safra, Paul Allen, Steve Jobs all died of cancer. And these are just a couple examples. This is a great fallacy. Cancer doesn't care how much money you have. Sure, you can access any kind of treatment you want, but none of them will guarantee your survival. But conspiracy theories usually have deeper roots than just some wrong beliefs that could be overwritten by counter-arguments. I already touched on why already existing, even highly specialized treatments won't work on everyone. If that's the case, then it's not hard to take a step further to understand why it would be incredibly difficult to find a cure that works on all and every type of cancer. But it's not enough, is it? One could still say that even if there isn't a single cure, then there might be separate cures hidden. It's about time we talk about conspiratorial thinking. The belief in conspiracy theories is mostly due to intuitive thinking, what one feels to be true given some information. They sometimes believe that their beliefs are based on analytical grounds, but usually their arguments can be easily refuted. Whenever that happens, a counter-argument comes usually in the form of just because there is no proof, it doesn't mean it's not true, or outright claims that you're in on it as well. Conspiracies that get very popular contain a bit of counterintuitive elements too. Things that defy expectations just a little bit are more memorable than those that are based purely on intuition and those that are completely against all reason. More people believe in this secret cancer cure existing than in a flat earth. This counterintuitiveness is the reason why conspiracy theorists will believe multiple contradictory things at the same time. They are selling treatments that keep people alive for profit, but the real cure is hidden. Existing cancer treatments are ineffective. They deliberately make people get cancer and charge for the treatment. Cancer is easily curable, actually. You only die because of the drugs. They can believe all these at the same time and not see a problem with it. Gossip is hardwired in our brains. Those kind of rumors that contain a human element, in this case an evil group, will spread more easily. Also, there's the fact that the world is insanely complex and reducing it to one thing is very convenient. Something bad can't happen by itself. There needs to be an equally big bad thing that caused it. Like an evil group that just wants the worst for everyone. This kind of thinking is mostly present in children who don't believe that things can happen without reason. Some people seem to not grow past it. On a psychological level, research shows that belief in conspiracies is associated with paranoia, narcissism, and insecure attachment, a disorder in which people are unable to form strong emotional bonds. Taken together, someone out there is conspiring to hurt people, to hurt you, which makes you afraid, and knowing that someone's behind all this, it isn't happening just because, gives you a sense of comfort. You know, we just need to find those behind them and we'll all be saved. It's us versus them. I believe this sense of comfort is why conspiracy theorists cling to these despite all reason, because this way at least they know what's going on. They would feel powerless otherwise. All things they see against the theory only prove how many people are in on it, and all they don't see for it proves the existence of an even deeper conspiracy. One must take a devil's advocate approach as well. There have been certain conspiracies that have proven to be true. Watergate, the Snowden files, the Tuskegee syphilis experiment. And this last one is to this day is a huge reason behind African and African American communities' overall distrust of the medical profession. It would be unfair to dismiss all conspiracies as paranoid, but there's a point where skepticism becomes denial. Also, there's a slight reason why these got out. Let's debunk some things. In 2016, Robert Grimes published a paper on the viability of conspiracy theories. He He estimated the number of people needed in order to keep a conspiracy going and the likelihood of it remaining secret in some of the most popular ones. The moon landing was faked, climate change denial, vaccines cause autism, and the one that interests us the most at this time, the secret cure for cancer. The paper is, well, it's math. If you're into that, I'll link it down below so you can read the whole thing. For now, I'm just going to highlight the most important details. He used exposed real conspiracies for his calculations, created a model in which he was able to calculate the probability of failure only due to internal exposure, since that's the most common way real conspiracies were exposed in the past. Snowden and the CIA, Dr. Peter Buxton and the Tuskegee syphilis experiment, both were exposed by someone on the inside. He eventually came up with this. It looks quite underwhelming. The blue line is what's important here. That represents the probability of exposure for a conspiracy with 5,000 initial conspirators, assuming that number is maintained over the years. The cancer conspiracy has been around for I don't know, very long. I read a paper from 1980 that complains about the same things we face today, like ineffective treatments, trust issues on the side of the patients, quacks, etc. So at least 42 years, likely a lot more. Seeing this graph assuming 5,000 people were in on it at first, and that number has stayed the same since then, there's over 60% chance probability that this conspiracy would have been exposed by now. But that number is not very realistic, is it? Taken together, the number of people that would know at least something and would be able to expose the conspiracy from the inside by a conservative estimation if only one smallest company was responsible is 57,000 people. 714,000 counting all companies because, if one of them made a cure, then all others must be in on it too. They all make cancer drugs and employees frequently change workplaces. The author of the paper wanted to be as generous as possible, and even this number put the inevitable failure at 3.17 years. There would have been a great number of scientists that developed the cure. They would have needed to test it on thousands of patients in order to make sure it actually works, and of course the people needed to cover it all up and not leave any traces. All this over many, many years. Paying off everyone is an option, but what amount would you keep this secret for? I'm sure Snowden got a decent pay at the CIA. It's not money that's the issue here. And if they killed off everyone involved, you really think that would have remained a secret? Thousands of people vanishing into thin air without anyone noticing. And don't forget, this is assuming someone from the inside leaks it by accident or on purpose. These calculations don't factor in someone from the outside prying for information. One last thing here is that there are many incredibly valid ways to criticize the pharmaceutical industry. But if cures to rare, serious diseases exist and they have the nerve to price them the way they do, don't you think they would do the same thing with a cure for cancer as well? Wouldn't that be more profitable than just hiding it? Everyone would want to pay for it, whatever that price was. But you know who's definitely profiting of ineffective stuff sold to cancer patients? One of the earlier cancer grifts I was able to find was the so-called Hoxie Cancer Clinic from the 1920-1930s that performed all kinds of junk and sold a brown liquid that contained herbal extracts, and he claimed it could cure cancer. It couldn't. If you or someone you know at any point goes somewhat into alternative treatments, chances are you've heard his name before. In circles such as this, he is still hailed as a hero, as someone Big Pharma tried to silence because he managed to find a simple solution for a complex problem. His regimens consisted of two main components: paste for external cancers that would cause burns, injuries and scarring, and a brown liquid for internal cancers containing herbal extracts with side effects such as nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and in some cases cardiotoxicity. According to him, this was all part of his cleansing method that would flush cancer out. He charged $400 a session, which today would be $7,130. Holy sh! Hoxie was a coal miner and an insurance salesman before starting his clinic. He had to move a bunch of times because at first he did not have a medical license, but then later acquired one and practiced in Texas for years.
In fact, it should have been printed on asbestos paper.
The FDA managed to close his clinics in the 1960s, and the sale and marketing of the stuff was banned in the US. However, several clinics in Mexico still sell them and claim an 80% success rate, with remaining 20% dying because of their bad attitude, according to the director of one of the centers. The American Cancer Society, the National Cancer Institute, and many other research centers warn people against the Hoxsey method. As part of a lawsuit in 1947, the FDA investigated 400 patients treated by him. They found that 1. Some of them never had cancer. Hoxsey just claimed they did without employing any of the standard diagnostic methods of the era. 2. Some of them had cancer that was successfully treated elsewhere. They were just afraid of it coming back. And 3. Some of them had cancer unresponsive to available therapy at the time. Not one cured case was attributable to him and his methods. What makes his case even more interesting, and tad ironic, is that he himself died of prostate cancer. He was diagnosed in 1967 and treated himself without success. He eventually got surgery and then died 7 years later. Up until his clinic was shut down, it was estimated that patients paid over a collective $891 million. Jesus Christ. What I find especially funny is that in a Flickr album about the FDA's history under the picture of this concoction, there are comments such as, "And today's cancer treatments are better." I completely agree. Plus, in the cases of Hoxsey, the pharmaceutical companies weren't making any money. But he was, Gwen. He was making a buttload of money selling herbal tea to dying people for a fortune, Gwen. People with cancer and their loved ones are usually willing to try anything with a vague promise of hope. Quacks will try pushing stuff with scientific-sounding buzzwords, claims that the thing that they're selling is natural and kills cancer. Loads of things they claim big pharma is trying to hide from the public in order to keep making a buttload of money. For ordinary people with no great incline for conspiratorial thinking, it would be beneficial to suggest asking their doctor. But for those who think doctors are in on it and are actively doing harm, this won't do a lot of difference. And natural doesn't mean harmless. When I was looking into quacks and their methods, where they are, what they are doing, I found this ad that just nearly made my blood boil. The protocol that you have found here is working really well to slow, if not outright stop cancer. And it takes only 30 days or less to execute. So why have you never heard of this treatment before? And why do doctors or big pharma not want you to be aware of it? Hi, my name is Mary Jo Parker. When I was a young girl, I smoked cigarettes with my friends in secret. I remember the day very clearly. I was in a room surrounded by doctors who were telling me that they believed something was growing in my lung. Initially, my doctors wanted me to wait 6 full months for a second opinion. What? No doctor makes their cancer patient wait 6 months. What is this nonsense? That was nonsense. Yeah, that's what I said. The secret to starving cancer cells has been known for over 70 years. Download this 123-page guide right now, but not for $79, but for only $37. Gee, what a deal, Mary. If you don't think you or your loved one's life is worth $37, all I can do is wish you all the best and thank you for stopping by. When I started digging into this, that anger was sort of overshadowed by how hilariously bad this scam was. I mean, it's still terrible. Whoever made this is trying to rip off desperate people. They can go die in a ditch. But this scam was constructed in the laziest way possible. Let's just check out the testimonials. Violet, you left such kind words. I now have real hope again. Weird phrasing, but I'm happy for you. Let's see who you are. It's a stock photo. I'm shocked. Carol and Doug. Stock photo. Malika. Yep. I now have real hope again. Wonder where I heard that one. Diane Joe, tell me at least you're real. Well, okay, this one just shows a hat, but I think you get the idea. Let's see the famous Mary Jo next. Mirelle Bouchard, I think that's how that's pronounced. Let's just quickly Google her. Oh, well, it appears she's a French author and not Mary Jo. What a surprise! Disclaimer, this website does not provide medical advice. But not for $79, but for only $37. I think I made my point. The world is riddled with people like these. To be fair, I think some grifters truly believe that they found the answer, or they just got so used to their own lies they started to believe them too. Maybe Hoxie did believe his things worked, but that doesn't change the fact that they didn't, and that he became incredibly rich on the backs of desperate people. A website I'd like to bring to your attention is Quackwatch, run by dedicated professionals writing in-depth explanations and warnings on who and what you should stay away from. I highly recommend it. The FDA also has a list of red flags to look for on its website when it comes to alternative treatments. These include: treats all forms of cancer, miraculously kills cancer cells and tumors, shrinks malignant tumors, selectively kills cancer cells, more effective than chemotherapy, attacks cancer cells leaving healthy cells intact, cures cancer. There's a lot wrong with the pharmaceutical industry, but they aren't profiting off sick people because they're evil. They are doing it because our current system allows them to. But their drugs work. There's evidence for them, and that's why the cancer death rate is declining rapidly. Even though there are more cancer cases, the chance one dies from it is lower than ever. The ones that are truly trying to rip off sick people are the grifters, who claim that they found a simple cure for an incredibly complex and diverse disease. Conspiracy theories have always existed and always will. Their existence is due to factors in our brains we can't control. We are all pattern-seeking social creatures who are anxious from the complexity in our world, and we seek comfort in trying to untangle the mess. This is why it's hard to convince someone who's dead set on believing in one. They are dealing with that anxiety this way, and accepting that it's not true would mean going back to the chaos. They will reject all evidence in order to keep that minor sense of comfort. However, research also suggests that belief in conspiracy theories is associated with political populism, extremism, and paranoia, and being part of groups that reinforce these beliefs can have detrimental effects on one's psyche and social status. So, giving them up would likely benefit them in the long run. It all started with a staged intervention last weekend at a cookout we were having at the house for family members. The wife, daughter, and a group of in-laws cornered me and told me I was being selfish. I was jeopardizing their safety. The nagging and the attitude had been going on for months prior. I once again explained my position, but no amount of evidence or logic offered up was going to change any minds. My entire immediate and extended family has bought the narrative and drank the Kool-Aid utterly and completely. There's no convincing anyone otherwise. Today the wife informs me that she wants me to move out of the house that I worked my ass off for decades to provide because I don't care enough about her to take the facts. It's a sad day, but I'm not wavering. I'm packing my shit and seeking alternative living arrangements. I did inform every single one of them to not call me when their health starts to go south in the near future, which was met with rolled eyes and an ambivalent shrug. They all think I've gone bananas. This conspiracy that cancer has a secret cure lies on the basis that bad things can't happen without an equally as bad cause. Seeing why it's not true requires understanding that they, in fact, do happen without a motive. Tons of bad things exist and they don't need a reason to. Cancer doesn't have to be a great conspiracy in order to be horrible. And I get that to some it seems to make less sense this way. We know of many things that cause cancer: smoking, asbestos, but even with these known facts, conspiracy theorists will point at anything without any second thought. The COVID vaccine, fluoride, gas stoves, face masks, hand sanitizers, satanizers. What even are these people? Conspiracy theories are also usually based on an us versus them mentality, and in medical conspiracy theories, they are mainly doctors. Gabriel Andrade, author of the paper Medical Conspiracy Theories, Cognitive Science and Implications for Ethics, which I got a lot from for this essay, outlines some practices. He mentions how focus groups, social media use among doctors, diversity training, and greater respect for patients' autonomy could all help bring patients and doctors to the same side. It's a difficult challenge, though. A study has shown that when they try to show evidence to parents that the MMR vaccine doesn't cause autism, images of sick children, a dramatic story of a child dying of measles, none of these increase the parents' intent to vaccinate their child. They even seem to strengthen the belief that vaccines cause something bad. It's like when you're wrong about something and someone bulldozes you with contradicting information to show that you're wrong. At first, it's a defense mechanism to double down on the wrong belief. To them, admitting that they were wrong when they chose to not vaccinate their children would mean admitting that they are bad parents. In their eyes, the researchers were essentially telling them that. And about cancer. We don't have a miracle cure, but if you're afraid that it would happen to you, then there are preventive methods that help reduce your risks. The key often isn't in curing it once you have it, but instead in trying to avoid things that are bad for you and catching it early, because in most cancer cases, they are treatable in early stages. The European Code for Cancer lists 12 ways to reduce your risk of getting cancer, all of which are evidence-based. If you believe in this conspiracy or even any conspiracy and you're still here, I hope I could at least sway you a bit. I know this isn't enough to convince you, but don't risk losing everything because of some fringe beliefs you found on the internet. I'm glad you're at least willing to listen. There's plenty of help available out there that could be beneficial. And if a loved one is stuck like that, well, all I can say is I'm sorry. Try to be patient and don't give up on them, although I know it's hard.